Hello, everyone. Turn this music down here. How's everyone doing? Thanks for joining me today. So, today we're going to talk a little bit about creativity. Mostly I just wanted to stream some ambient music, but then I started thinking about all the things that I wanted to maybe share about, particularly when it comes to drumming and ambient music. Just ambient music in general, but specifically, this is going to be somewhat focused towards if you're, if you play drums, if you're a drummer. However, most of the things that I'm going to talk about today are really applicable to any instrument that you play. So if you're a vocalist or a composer or a keyboard player or a guitar player, a lot of these concepts will be similar. So let's take a look at what we've got going here. So I've got the chat off today. I've got so many things I want to cover. I decided to probably the next few streams. I'll have the chat off, and then at some point I'm going to run out of subject matter. So then I'll be welcoming your questions at that point. So, but for the moment, for me to be able to kind of talk about some of these things. I think we'd run out of time probably if I started answering questions. So there's no chat. So when it comes to, if any of you are ambient music creators, one of the things I like to start with is, I think we all like to start with is some sort of like drone or synth or some sort of fundamental kind of tone. And these streams. Creating ambient music. A lot of times I'll get on here and I have other channels too. Sometimes I get on and just improvise, and that's largely what we're going to be doing today. We don't really know what's going to happen. Just playing stuff. I did do a little bit of earlier as I was testing sound. I have, as you can see here on the screen, I have a couple of tracks, a couple of loops that I recorded, so we'll probably end up taking a listen to those. But I usually like to start with some kind of drone, and not always, but sometimes. And I found this cool Jupiter 8 sound I'll show you. And what I want to talk about specifically as it comes to creativity and drums is I'm going to start with a couple of concepts that are a little bit out there. So if you're into experimental music or, just experimental music, ambient music, things where you're not terribly concerned about the mainstream, these concepts could actually be really useful for you in the context of making your music. But if you're more into creating for the mainstream or, middle of the road or whatever, then you can still definitely try these concepts. If you're not familiar with them, if you've never tried them, definitely try them, because they sort of exercise the muscles of creativity and it'll help you, write better material, write more creative things, come up with ideas. Folks talk from time to time about, writer's block and things like that. And this is certainly, you could use these concepts for any of those situations. If you're facing sort of the blank page and unsure what to do, there's one idea. You guys may have heard of this before, but there's an idea about playing some. There's a squirrel outside the window eating figs, so that's what I'm distracted. Playing something that you've never played before. So this idea of like you get in this mental state of, I'm going to try to play something I've never played before. So let me try that. Let's see what happens. I'm going to hop on the drums here for a second. Okay, so that was kind of jagged, that's what popped in my head. That was me trying to play something that I've never ever played before. So now we might do a little bit more with that in a minute. And if I wanted to, as a kind of a fundamental undertone of something, that could be useful. You could maybe do something with that. Wasn't very rhythmic, which is okay. It just was. I was trying to just play something I'd never played before. Now you couldn't. The longer you've been playing, maybe the more difficult this gets. But you could potentially play a beat, a more rhythmic, structured beat that you've never played before. But the idea is just opening up this creativity, opening up this idea, opening up your mind to something you've never done before. Let me try one more time. This time I'm going to try to play a beat. A lot of times when you do this at first, you're going to play something that you've played before. It's hard. This is very difficult to do, by the way, especially the longer you've been playing. But I'm going to try to see if I can come up with a beat that I've never played before. Okay, maybe. I don't think I switched cameras there. So I started playing one beat, and then I was like, no, I've played that before, and so I switched to something else. So playing a unison rhythm that didn't, just was abstract, da 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 da, something like that. Trying to change the accent so that maybe it's different from something I played before. So it's very difficult, but it does get you thinking, right? Now, that's not to say that there aren't rhythms that we all haven't played, because let's say, for instance, this is a little bit outside the context of what I'm talking about, but let's say you've never played reggae before, or let's say you've never played jazz before. Well, that's a whole mountain of deep crevasse of beats that you can go to and check them out and learn them and add them to your playing. So it's an interesting way to approach it, because you can take those beats that you've learned and maybe expand them and sort of make them your own. It's not really what I'm talking about today, but because what I'm talking about today is trying to pull something out of your sort of almost unconscious. So the next idea, this is idea of like playing something you've never played before. The next idea is to have some kind of musical reference point. So I'm going to go back to the drone here for a second. It was where it started to go a second ago. But just having a sound to play to, right? Something. That was me in space, right? That was me by myself. No sound, no nothing. Just your head. And by the way, one thing I didn't really do, which makes that process a lot easier, is to sing something. I was doing it with no musical reference. So if you start singing something, if I start singing, okay, now I'm locked in. I've got but see, I've created. For that particular early phase, I was trying to stay away from time reference, right? So I could write a song around that, just super easy. But that's not what I was trying to do. What I was trying to do is not have a time reference. So the next thing is not having a time reference, but at least having a sound. And by the way, these are things I do all the time. Like I practice this way. Sometimes I'll just put on a drone, go down, my other studio, other drum set, whatever, or this one or whatever, and start playing. Just have just a sound there, And I have all kinds of little different tricks that different things that I do that I put in my ears that some are distracting, some are allow me to focus. I might talk about some of those today, or I might do it on another stream, but or video. But the next thing is to have maybe have some kind of sound reference, right? So let's go back to this Jupiter for a second. I'm going to pull up a drone. And let's see, is the guitar on? No. Let's go for, let's go here. Going for C. Let's go for C sharp. Okay, let me see, no time reference here other than the fact that there is a little bit of a time reference there, and so the modulation, which I'm going to leave for now, but I'm going to try to ignore that, but that is a little bit of a time reference. I kind of wish I had recorded that last part. I mean, I wasn't recording in the DAW. So that took me about, so that last thing I was doing there, well, you know, I kind of built up to it, right? But I didn't know that was going to happen. I liked that. Everything else I played was fine. It's just, you know. But this is an interesting way to practice. It's an interesting way to practice. Interesting way to practice creativity. So I used a sound reference, and I did find myself, what is that? What's the rhythm here? I was finding that a little difficult to ignore, the modulation. But nothing wrong with it. I mean, play with it. Yeah, it's totally fine. That might be the start of something. But what I was trying to do, you know, as much as possible is, as you could see, speeding up, slowing down, different feels, different beats, all different kinds of things. And then eventually I locked into something that I kind of liked, which again, I wish I could replay right now, but I wasn't recording. So, but that's the idea of having a sound reference, and sometimes it could even be with this idea of, and I think this is a topic for another video or another stream. It could be something like spoken, like you're listening to an audiobook or a podcast or something, puts you in a totally different mindset. Right? So then it's just you and the drum set, and that's a sound reference. But what you're doing in that, and this is not a great way to practice like how precise your double stroke roll is, or how fast your single stroke roll is, or it could be if you're maybe really advanced. But in general, this is more about, by listening to something else, which may or may not be distracting. This is more about getting your conscious mind out of the way and trying to pull from the unconscious, which is kind of where I ended up at the end there, you know, with that eventually. But it took me a few minutes to get there. So, and I guess, you know, even earlier when I was doing the play something I'd never played before idea, maybe I would have eventually gotten there if I'd kept, you know, if I landed on something that I liked, landed on something that was like, you know, fun. So, oh gosh, wish I could turn this camera around. I have a squirrel hanging upside down by his legs, eating a, let's see if I can get a shot of this. Sorry, I got to take a quick picture of this. See, he's hanging upside down by his legs, and he's eating a fig. Okay. Oh my gosh, so adorable. Okay, I'm a sucker for nature. So, next thing we're going to look at is, let's see here. So I'm going to record a little bit. I'm going to do, let me think for a second here. I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to build on that like one more step. I'm going to add a little bit of guitar and then drums, but which order do I want to do it in? Let's see, we'll do, let's see, I'm going to try. I'm going to see if I can record a loop with that. And then I'm going to, well, let me do that first and I'll see. So what I'm going to try to do here is similar in that I'm not going to use a metronome. I'm going to try to see if I can do this on the loop without using any metronome. Click our recording off for now. I'm going to record a drone, so it should let me do it. Record a drone and then either guitar next and a beat, or beat next and guitar. We'll see. So let's do. Okay, we've got that. We got this. Switch over. Okay. I just realized something I want to change about that. See, I've already got a beat there. I don't want that. I didn't get it at the beginning because I was hoping it would loop. One more time, we'll get it. This is sometimes where when you're using loop stuff, it's challenging to not have a metronome. Let's go back here. And there also there's a anyway there is a metronome. You know, I'll do a count in and then I'll drop it. I don't like that, but here we go. Okay, that'll work. Not exactly what I was trying to do, but it'll work. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna add guitar next. Or well, let's go drums next. Let's go drum next. Okay, let's see what happened. So the idea there is that all that stuff I just played, I would not have played otherwise unless I was putting myself kind of in this creative state. I feeling maybe where the loops started and stopped a little bit may have sort of inferred to me a bit of a rhythm where it, it kind of has that wah where it started. But anyway, that's okay. So let's take a listen, and then I think I'll add maybe some guitar on top of this, perhaps. That off, that on. Be right back. I think I've got the longest loop in the recorded history there. Let's see. So that guitar loop, hopefully it recorded a very small waveform. Let's see what we've got here. So the idea there is that minimal guitar, so as not to create. I mean, I could have leaned into the rhythm of what the drums were doing at this point. But as you can see, if you imagine there not being any drums, which let's actually we'll listen to that for a second. If the guitar recorded, then you can imagine that, yeah, there it is. That if you just had the drone and the guitar, your guitar player, it's the same process of sort of finding a rhythm in there somewhere, you know. Now you could be imagining a drum beat in your head. That's a good way to kind of like, these are almost like creative thought exercises. Some of these things I'm talking about today. So just keep that in mind. They're ways to get out of a creative rut or just do something new or do something different. And yeah, anyway, that's enough about that. Let's listen to this for a second. I'll come back to that in a minute. So if we have... Yeah, so just the guitar and the synth for a second. I would probably do something a little more with this. I would probably add some reverb to this drone. It's really dry. Let me see. That's nice. Forgot about the drums. I was getting sucked into the Bahalia verb there. Completely. It's back it up just for a second. Let's listen to this for a second. So the idea, one of the ideas here is that you're kind of forcing yourself to think, you know, I hate to use the term outside of the box, think in a different way. And by having just that drone playing and being like, what can I come up with? And this is, I call it creative practice. This is one of about 10 methods I have for creative practice, but you do have to practice it. It may not be, first of all, you may not be happy with the results the first time around, number one. And number two, it will get better as you do it. And number three, even if as you get better, it still may stink. You know, you're not always going to get, when you're practicing, you're not always going to get like something brilliant. Like in this case, could I turn this into a track? Probably. I think so. I haven't really thought about it until right now. Yeah, it's almost something. This chord progression is, I kind of had it worked out ahead of time. So on the guitar, guitar-wise, when I was doing my level check, earlier, this track you'll hear in a minute, which is the same thing really, it's just with a time reference. I had kind of worked out a chord progression. 7-string open tuning. But this is, you know, mainly just think of this as a way to kind of get outside, you know, do something different. Part of the overlooked, you know, you have to practice. Obviously, you have to practice your instrument to get good enough to the point where you can improvise and just make stuff up on the spot. But also, you also have to practice creating new things. And it is, you know, this is something that you can do. This is one of the reasons I'm showing you this is something that anyone can do. And this is something I kind of meant to talk about earlier. If you have just an iPhone with GarageBand, then you can do this. And furthermore, with that and a set of headphones, you can record yourself doing the drums and a synth, just like that. And of course, there's equivalent, easy to use DAWs for Android phones as well. So most of us have a phone in our pocket. It's either an Android or of some sort, or an iPhone of some sort. iPad, same thing. Tablet, same thing. Any kind of multi-tracking software that you can plug headphones into, hear the synth, and then record the drums onto, you know, even if it's coming through your headset, or if it's coming through that could be, you know, there could be varying results. Coming through the headset, by the way, I mostly have experience with this with iPhones, but the Apple earbuds, it's pretty good. Like the sound is pretty good, and the compression schemes on iPhones are also pretty good. So if you're able to select the microphone in the settings, if you're able to select the microphone of the phone itself, it'll record in stereo. So it's capable of, I'm not sure about GarageBand, but I'm pretty sure it's capable of recording in stereo. But even if it's not, it does a pretty good job of handling the high volume and peaks of a drum set. Modern iPhones do. So if you set it, so in other words, if your earbuds and you've got your phone, kind of sitting in the position that you'd be hearing drums, sitting in your lap while you're playing the drums, um, as long as as long as the microphone coming out of your headset or earbuds, if those have varying levels of quality, but in terms of the phone itself, if you can figure out a way to do the settings so that it's just the phone itself, the built-in microphone for that, the sound is pretty good. The reason I say on these, headsets are designed, they narrow the frequency band because they're designed mostly to pick up your voice, so that the frequency band is mostly mid-range. But it's still, for practicing and listening, it's fine. Even that is fine. But if you can pull up a sequence or a synth or something on your phone, and then you're able to record while you're listening in your headphones, and then use the built-in microphones on an iPhone, the drums actually, if you can get the iPhone in the right position, the drums actually sound pretty good. They've years ago, like pre iPhone 7-ish, maybe somewhere around there. They had like the hi-hats, all the high frequency hi-hat cymbals and things like that would cause distortion, and they fixed that. Somewhere around 7 or 8, and now everything sounds pretty good on an iPhone. I don't mean like you're going to release a record good, but for practicing, it's great. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this was. This is a little bit of again, kind of an abstract idea, or not abstract, but kind of a little bit of a challenging idea, and you can take it and kind of make it your own. One of the things that I still do a lot that maybe we'll do today, maybe we won't, is that's a little more maybe slightly more accessible. Let's try it. We have let's see, how's the time? Yeah, and because I still want to play you. Let's see, which one do I want to do first? Let's do... So let's move to a time reference, and then I'll play you the same version of that in a minute. All right, we're going to go to a different track here. So... Okay, so now we do have a tempo here, and let's see. I want to come back to that same tempo, since whatever this is at that tempo. So in case I end up changing the tempo, I want to make a note of 95,209. Okay. So I don't know how that odd tempo came about. I can't remember. Anyway. So I'm going to pull the juke again. I'm going to drop this reverb for a second. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make another track. I'm not going to pull up that juke. Let's call this ARP, because I'm going to try to find an ARP. So this is maybe a slightly more accessible version of the same thing. I'm going to mute the guitar for a second. Let's see if we can find a cool ARP to play to. So again, I'm using Logic here, and I'm using an Arturia synth, but as someone who practices a lot plays a lot with GarageBand and a bunch of other stuff that's free, you can, or very, very low cost, you can you don't have to. It's nice if you have a DAW to do this with and you can hear everything, but you can monitor everything, but this is something you can do with your phone. So I'm going to see if I can find sequence. Let's scroll through some of these. I'm gonna I want to make sure the volume on this is not too loud. I don't want anything to jump out at us crazy, so I'm going to make sure I've got the right one here. Okay, take this down for just a second in case it goes wow, wow. Okay, this is good. We're in G. So I'm just going to play for this for a second. It's a very definitive rhythm there, right? So now I can decide what it is I want to do with this. I'm going to see if this will let me record this track. Mute that. Nope, can't do that. We do not want a metronome because we're going to use this as our time reference, which is probably synced. Sometimes I find these this production note here. Sometimes I find the Arturia synths sync easily to the project, and sometimes I find that they do not. I'm going to assume that's recording. So a much easier time reference. Here we go for just a couple of minutes. Okay. So let's imagine that we played with that for, it's like how many things, one thing you could do with that we didn't record for some reason. One thing you could do with that is this idea of like how many different ideas could I get out of that? Like how many different beats could I get out of that? So if you could play with just that dook 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 for a half an hour. Let's see, why didn't I get any recording there? Was it because I had not hit record when we? Yeah, because I hit it after the fact. Okay, we're gonna do one more like that. Something else, something different. Hopefully something slightly. Let's see, that was in G. Let's try G sharp. Woo. See what this does. Nope. Check. Oh, I left this mic on. That'll be interesting. Let's see. I'm switch back to the camera Okay, get a new drum sound. Yeah, because I left this mic on. The drums will be louder. You can already see it in the waveform. All right, let's see what we got. So that was kind of cool. So that's a good example of I like this bass jumper. So it's a good example of, we've listened to 2 or 3 sounds or played to 2 or 3 sounds here from this one synth. And again, you go through something like some basic DAW that comes with some synths, and you can find inspiration for days. Imagine, you could, obviously, like that, actually that vibe right there, if we wrote a chord progression to that, what key was I in? Imagine we did, we could easily write a song with that. Let me try a single note. Let's see. Let's do. So yeah, all day long. Let's see. All right, let's go back to, and that's we could make a little loop out of something like that. Super easy with such a great sound. But by paring it way down to just like one sound or to just one arpeggio, by starting with something really minimal like the drone, then when you hear something like that, it makes that all the more effective, which by the way is also sort of a songwriting tip as well. Like you can start small and build. Let's see. Boom. Let's listen to this for a second. Nope. Here's me saying nope. It'd be interesting to see what the drums sound like with this mic on. This will not be the first or last time I've accidentally left this mic on. Well, that's right. We didn't record that. So I didn't record this. So are these in time? That's going to be interesting. I should have recorded that. I thought actually I did mean to record that. I did hit record on that, and it didn't record for whatever reason. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can figure out why that is. So if this was, I guess because I didn't hit the note afterwards. Chase must not be on. Oh, Logic, why don't you default to Chase? Oh my gosh. So those of you Logic users, this is something that I've found, and if you use a lot of MIDI, you probably already know it. If you're new to Logic, this will be a life-changing setting. You go to File, Project Settings, and MIDI. And then you want Chase, and you want Notes. I always check this one too for cycle. But what this does is it will chase the notes regardless of where it is in the. Otherwise, if this is not checked right here, then when you start a note, this may or may not be the reason why I didn't record, but when you start a note, it won't start playing the note until the next sort of reset, whatever that happens to be in that piece. So this will now, it doesn't affect loops. That's why it's not on this project, because it doesn't affect loop, because I wasn't planning on doing this. It wasn't planning, it doesn't affect, the loops chase fine, because that's what they're kind of designed to do. But over here, if I have a MIDI loop, like for instance, let's see. So let's do a quick test here. So if I hit record, let's see. I don't remember what key we're in. Is that roll back the video. to hit the note after you hit record. It's I don't know if that's a setting or a flaw. I would think it would. It's not seeing any MIDI information because but it's still Logic knows it's playing MIDI. I don't know. I'm not crazy about that. Okay, so the question is, if we try to play this with the drums, let's see what happens. Okay. This is going to do one more like that. This is going to be the real question. I don't need to be in record, though. Maybe I could try it. Maybe I'll try recording. Let's see, just for fun. Maybe I'll do the chord progression. If this is in time, it'll be a miracle because basically there's, again, so this is time reference. This is, if you're going to use this for production, you have to, so in this case, the synth is the time reference and you're playing drums to the synth and you could keep that and it would be great. Now trying to make the sequence adhere to the drums is problematic unless you get into some serious editing, but we'll try it for a minute. See what this does. Nope. Did I turn the drums down? Oh, I turned the master down. That's what it was. So here I'm playing against the time, so it makes it a little more difficult. Okay, so lots of fun there. And, you know, when you're, this brings up a whole other topic of a world that I love to work in. Not necessarily when I'm streaming live, but like I'm doing now. But that is the world of no grid, the no grid world. So if you're a drummer, you know, yeah. So this idea of creating music without any, you know, basically maybe you start with a beat or maybe you don't. If you don't start with a beat, not having a metronome, not using the grid, all these kinds of things, it's a fascinating world. If you're a producer who works mostly in MIDI and with drum machines and things like that, it's, you know, it's probably very, very foreign. And in this case, you know, there's a million. We could probably play this in time. I'm playing with a sequence, and now I'm trying to play the sequence with the drums. The drums are playing with the sequence, and on these, oftentimes you have the beginning of the attack of the note, which is setting, which you can change in the setting, but it's a little tricky. But like, let's see if we did. So that's pretty consistent. If you hold the note down and move to the next note, if it's that's one little trick is a lot of times the scents are set up in such a way that you can hold down one note, and if you hold it down until you press the next one, if it's this has LFO sync on, so, and also it's in solo mode, so it's probably kind of unison. Let's see, is it unison? Yeah, so it's kind of in it's in solo mode, so it's just playing one key at a time. So that anyway, so let's do just one more quick thing with that, just for fun. Also, any latency you get is problematic in this. You gotta have 0 latency if you're doing this. It's close. So that's fine with no grid. Okay, so we've gone from 0 time reference to kind of a time reference with this. And now let's go to a time reference. So this is probably what most people are used to doing. And to get to the point, I'm working backwards here, and this is kind of an advanced idea about creativity and some of these things we're talking about today. And when I say I'm working backwards, I mean that to get to the point where you can synchronize those things as I was just doing in real time, you first have to get to the point where you can play consistently with a metronome. So, that's a whole other, lots of good videos out there about that, and maybe I'll do some in the future. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. But let's take a look at this one. So back to this idea I had a second ago. Let's see. Okay, we have this one, and we have this one. We're here. I don't quite. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do, debating what to do with this track here. I guess I'll just make another one. So I don't have to deal with multiple takes and all that. All right, we're going to mute that. I'm going to reset all these. I'll tell you another thing that there's a whole bunch of different looping tools that are floating around, and to the end of this idea of creativity and this idea of sort of being surprised at what can happen and surprising yourself and not really knowing what's going to happen and all that. You can't always work this way. It's a way just to, again, we're exercising our creative muscles, and then sometimes you get good pieces of music out of it too. But sometimes you, unless you're just an experimental artist all the time, but sometimes you have to really think about, map certain things out. But you can bring this into you can bring this idea into just when it comes to just writing a melody or a rhythm or anything. So this one that I recorded earlier, what I'm going to do, we are now going to turn on the metronome. And I'm going to play with the metronome. And we've got this same Jupiter 8 sort of drone here, pad, it's really a pad. And then I'll check the volume of it here. I might leave that big reverb on there for this, maybe. And then I've got this guitar thing, which is kind of a variation of what we were doing earlier. And then I'm going to, let's call this new live drums. I'm going to record some drums here. I got to remember to turn this mic off too. Let's see. Okay. All right. So let's try this out. And also the idea of recording a loop in here versus over here, that's a logic, that's a whole other logic thing. I don't think there's any advantage to me doing it one way or the other for this thing. I think it's all locked up, so it doesn't matter too much. So I'll just go with the audio waveform over here. Okay, we're going to cue these. You don't actually have to cue them individually every time, but it's a habit. Okay, we need metronome. Hopefully you're going to check the level of the metronome here. So this was a little, just something that I put together when I was testing the levels. And for those of you that write, and that hopefully some of you do, because it's kind of what we're talking about here is creativity that leads to things. That those two, the drone and the guitar, came up fairly quickly. There's not the guitar is not, it's not very structured. I caught on to where the hits were, fortunately, because I'd only played it once before, and maybe and then but the changes were not. I wasn't thinking about any particular. I think they're uneven. Basically, they're not like necessarily 4 or 8 or 16 bars. So that's always interesting. Let's see. So we've got new live drums. Let's listen to this for a second. And this is the advantage, obviously, to using a metronome. You get it's easier to sync everything up. That's why we use them. So, and if you're working with real players, or working with live players, I should say, not real players, but live players, then you can play with the time. Live players can push and pull and play with the time. Play with the time feel, basically. I'll be right back. Do any mixing here. I could hear a bass. It's all very floaty, which is nice. It doesn't have to have a bass. It might be nice to let it float. Not crazy about that rim sound there. This is the first time I've ever. This is a new set. It's the first time I've ever played side stick on that snare. Okay. Probably EQ that rim slightly. Side production note here. Let's listen to that rim for a second. Let's see if I can get it. Let's see what we've got. I would probably automate that one rim part a little bit. Gosh. With a better stick placement, it would be fine. Just was, I heard it when I played it, but I decided to stick with it so it would stay the same. Made a decision in the moment. Okay. I'm happy with the rest of it though. Just have to decide how I feel about that rim sound. Other than that, it's fine. It's got a nice feel to it. The decision at this point would be whether or not to add a bass, like a fretless maybe might work. I'm looking at the fretless. Or a synth bass. Or maybe a I don't remember that. Wow, it's in time. One more time, trying to figure out what's going on here. I know I rushed the fill a little bit, but okay. I can totally hear the fretless on this. Maybe stay a little bit in the higher register. I don't know if we'll have time. I might try a fretless track, maybe. I don't know. We'll probably take a few takes to actually get a fretless part. Fretless is you kind of have to write, depending on how much you play it. It might probably take a few takes to. Maybe depends on what I lock into and how long this piece is. So this drum thing's driving me crazy. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with it. So let's listen to that for a second. So now we're going to be critical about the drums for a second. So okay, so we're going to mute and mute. Let's see. All right, DQ. 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 So I landed the 4, I guess. Landed the 4. Where is it? Why does this waveform look so small? Hello? What? That's weird. Oh, is this not? Nope. Follow? What's going on here? There we go. So it's weird because when the click is playing, it sounds okay. You know, it sounds like because there's it's giving us the time reference. But when you drop the click, it sounds you can hear the. Let's see. Okay, so we might fix this real quick. I'm considering what to do here. Not that much. Maybe? No, not that much. So I saved the 1. So this is an interesting. Got to figure out what to do here because the 1's fine, but it doesn't sound like the 1's fine. All right, the one's perfect. The 1 is like, ooh, that's pretty good right there. Boy. Be right back. Okay, so a couple things we could do here. I'm just trying to think about like an easy way before I get into super chopping here. We could try moving. We could try moving this hit. This is the one that makes it feel like so the. 3, 4, 1. It's the one that it's the 4 that makes it feel like there's a big giant gap there. Could move. Might make sense to move this whole fill. This is we're getting into the weeds here with drum editing, and you know when you It's a whole other subject again. None of this is on the grid. We could put all this on the grid. We could let kind of like Logic pick a bunch of. I don't know what it would do with this. So these are kind of triplet feels. It's like beta ba, triple triple. So yeah, Logic. Who knows? Had to play with that some, but do. I wonder. Okay, try a little experiment here. I'm going to go against what I just said. I'm going to slide this up a bit, just see what happens. I'm going to try to eliminate the gap by doing this a little bit and see. I'm suspicious here. I don't think this is going to work. It's actually not bad if I can get rid of the crossfade. It's not bad. Logic's like, no, you must have crossfade. That's because I cut the waveform off. That's way better. So that might be a quick and dirty solution. Yeah, okay. So drum editing 101 with the studio drummer. Let's see. Yeah, let's hear it in context. Context. Now the only problem, I just realized something. I've just moved everything up. So that was actually, what was I thinking? Oh my gosh. So I've moved it actually sounds okay. But I'm fading out here, but that was not the best way to do that because I just moved everything. So let's go back. Let's undo. Let's go to the undo history. We're going to go to divide. We're going to go right back to there. What was I thinking? And then, okay. So here's what I'm thinking. Let me hear this again. I might just move just that one snare. What is that right there? This one peak. Whoops. What's the one little peak after the snare? Is that a cymbal? I guess so. I'm going to try this section here. I'm not so sure about this, but we'll see what happens. Just need a little bit, you know. Can't remember how much I moved it. That's probably too much. Sounds like I did a buzz there, which is in context with what I was doing, which is in keeping with kind of what I was doing. Ooh, oh, that was smooth. That's not going to work. Okay. All right, so no. What I had before was actually okay-ish, but then everything is off the grid. So this will take a little bit of time. Probably what I'll do here is because I'm fading out. Actually, what I had before. reason it was working is because I'm out here basically. So that actually did work. So because of the context. Okay, let's go back. Let's see. Can I go back to that? Where is that? Where I? Okay. Let's redo it. Was it about there? Timing's not as good. I think that's too much. Okay. I'm going to let this play. It is time to wrap things up here, but thank you so much for joining me. The main takeaway here, I hope that you take away from this, is a couple of ways to think outside the box. You can remember, you can do this with any instrument. This kind of idea of basically starting without a time reference or maybe a slight time reference. And if you are starting with a time reference, as I did in this case, meaning that we had a click. So the big change there is when the click happens, then now you're very locked into a specific time frame. You know, whether or not you play shuffle feel against it, or a triplet feel against it, or a straight feel against it, or an eighth, whatever, that's all open to interpretation and probably dictated somewhat by the music. But by having no time reference, you can totally create from scratch out of your head. So it's just an interesting idea to play around with. And try this. Let me know, in the comments if it's something that you've tried and if it's worked for you. I'd love to hear from you. You can always get in touch with me at jc@jkazmusic.com. And I appreciate you guys joining me today, and I hope to see you soon.